Hi, my name is Charlie. I'm a creative consultant and creative director, former creative director of the agency Old Continent. So I'm used to work with creatives and that's why this video is going to explain how to do a video case study to creatives who are working for a production agency. The case studies we're going to tackle are from DG Regio. These are projects that have been done or potentially are in the doing, and we want this particular project to be told with a video of less than 3 minutes to anyone who would like to hear about the project itself. Okay, it's a very specific tool of communication. A case study video is basically based on one thing. We want the viewer to remember if seen the project. We want the viewer to actually carry this story forward. Okay, so he has to remember what was the project about. He has to understand it very quickly and carry the story forward. We want him to retell this story later or reuse the case study eventually in a conference or in any moment where he's in contact with other people. It's a PR tool. It's a public relation tool. Okay, we want the story to go forward. That's very important. We don't want just to impress on a viewer and that's over. We want to impress on a very specific type of viewers, and these are called storytellers. Okay, we are designing this case study for storytellers, people who are in the business of telling stories. There are not that many types of storytellers actually. Journalists are one type of storytellers. They understand a project, they meet people, they craft a story, and this story is directed to other people, to their readers. Politicians are doing exactly the same. They carry 3, 4, 5 stories per year, retell these same stories all the time, and this is how a politician shows he understands the world. Policymakers, when they do a law, when they craft a law, that's the same thing. They understand how the world works and they retell this story in the format of a law. And communicants, people like you and me working for agencies, we tell the stories on behalf of our clients all the time. So we are storytellers, we craft stories. And to craft a good story, we need to first understand how the project works. A case study video is a format less than 3 minutes, okay, where we need to understand the problem extremely quickly, what was at stake, and present the solution like that was the best solution ever for that particular problem. And we want to show that it worked. That's absolutely as simple as that. A problem, a solution, how it worked, proof it works. So in order to craft our video case studies, we're going to use a structure which is used extremely well in advertising competitions. If you've been to the Cannes Lions or seen Effie's or Cannes Lions case studies, they are all structured in a very similar way. And the reason why they are structured in a similar way is that if you're a jury member at one of these advertising awards and you're watching 40 case studies a day, which one do you remember, right? You need a structure to understand very quickly what was the problem, what was the solution found, how it worked, and actually the proof it worked. This is what you're judging. So we're using the very same structure, and this structure has 7 steps. Okay, it starts with a very precise problem. What is the problem we are solving? Okay, generally you start with a big problem, like climate change. We are solving climate change. But if you are solving climate change, no one actually understands what you're meaning because it's so vast. So we are digging in the second step into the specific of this particular problem. Climate change is big, floods in a village, that's specific. Okay, so that's the second step, being specific. The third step is to find an insight into human beings. So climate change, a flood in a village, the third thing, what it is. Actually, the flood touch someone. Okay, so that could be the grandmother of someone having water in her house. If you can't find an insight, something that is very powerful on a human based manner, then you need to raise the expectations. So raising the expectations is the default mode. We had climate change, we had floods, so we needed to come with a solution that would prevent floods in every village in Romania. Okay, then that's the moment where you go on to the solution. The solution is a category solution. Okay, you build something that is part of category that everyone can understand. Climate change, flood, grandmother with water. The solution, we created a massive infrastructure project to deviate the river onto another valley, for instance. That's a big solution. That's an infrastructural project. Engineering, that's a good solution. That's a category solution. You don't really dig into the specifics yet, okay? If it's an app, you build an app. If it's a website, you build a website. If it was a workshop or a series of workshops, or if it was about training teachers, that's a category solution. The fifth step, that's the moment where you start to dig into how it works, okay? We want specifics in this case, the features of the project, how it worked. But we don't want a bullet list of every single thing you thought about or the project owner thought about. We don't want people to have a menu. We want people to remember 3 main points. Climate change, flood, grandmother underwater, in general, a big project to change the course of a river, how it works. First, we mapped geologically the whole region. Secondly, we actually built the deviation of the river. Third, we control the ecological impact of the whole thing, okay? That's a 3-step solution. That's a great feature. You can remember it, okay? If you go for more than 3 features, you start to lose the person who's watching the case. If you go for less, that doesn't show enough precision usually to understand how the project worked. So 5 is too much, 2 is too few, 3 is a good number. 6th step, proof it works. You're saying all this, we don't care if you don't show it worked. So the proof it worked for our particular infrastructural project would be in the next 5 years there was no flood at any moment, while on the other villages there were floods, okay? That's a proof. If you're talking about trading people, workshops, how many people actually took part? We want the data, we want the real number. If it's a PR case, we want the number of articles, the people who talked about it, we want the logos, if it was featured in The Guardian, for instance, or any big things or broadcasted on TV, we want to show that. So the proof it works, you collect everything that is proving the project worked. Final step, the brand and vision. You see, I didn't start it with the logo. I didn't start with the name of a project. Actually, I don't care. No one cares unless you actually proved the project was worthy. At that moment, people start to relate and think, oh my God, who was actually behind this project? That's the brand. The vision is usually a big message like we're solving floods everywhere in Romania thanks to that project. Or we are contributing to reducing climate change impacts in Europe. Okay, that's the big vision. You will see that the big vision actually comes quite easily once your case study is very well structured. So let's watch an actual case study. That's what we call a data-driven case study. Very big, massive infrastructural stuff that was done. Okay, it's related to big data. You will see I'm gonna follow the problem-specific insight solution very quickly. It's very well exposed in this particular case and it's quite fast. So you will see, watch the case study with me.
Have you ever thought about the true cost of your last purchase? The price you actually paid is only the tip of an iceberg. The real impact of our spending behavior has yet to be calculated until now.
As a bank, we analyze large amounts of financial data to identify risks. And as a company based on an island in one of the world's most polluted seas, the problem is alarming. That's why we launched the Baltic Sea Project and the Åland Index, to provide funding, understanding, and to engage all clients as agents for change.
By combining financial risk analysis data, merchant category codes, and carbon pricing set by the World Bank, the index calculates the environmental impact of every transaction. The bank presents a monthly impact report of your credit card purchases and the opportunity to compensate for the true cost of your consumption. The initiative was launched to position the bank using PR, digital, direct and social media channels to activate and engage both clients, the public and the competition. But the most effective medium is the credit card, biosourced, that serves as a daily reminder of the need for change. With this initiative, the bank has turned all client tools for consumption into an instrument for nature. Within the last year, the bank has been invited multiple times to the United Nations conferences on climate change, generated €380,000 in funding, reached 350 million people, and increased brand awareness by 308%. In the first quarter, we've computed over 2.5 million transactions. But true change is created together. and the index is offered as an open innovation to all other banks and their clients. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
You've noticed that this particular sort of project, data-driven project, focus a lot on the how it works. Obviously, that's really a big part of the case because that's a massive technological solution in this case. So we started with the problem climate change, then we went on to Åland Islands, these small islands between Sweden and Finland, who have this particular problem and can do something about it, right? The CEO of the bank actually talked, that was the insight. We could change the behavior of our customers if we offered correct data. The solution, boom, the bank index, the carbon index. How it works, a lot of different parts, but the big features are big data combination, offering it to the users of the bank with a credit card, and that provoke behavioral change. The proof it works, United Nations, lots of articles, amazing PR, and other banks who wants to do the same thing. Finally, the big vision and the brand at the very end. Okay? Let's watch another case. This case study is an emotional case study. Okay, in this case, what will be very important is the presence of people. But notice one thing: there is no voiceover. For a very emotional type of case, you don't want a voiceover. You could, but you don't want it because it's more powerful if people actually are carried forward by the music, by the actual interactions of people. That's another type of case. Let's watch.
Você já ouviu falar na Copa de Asa, né?
Se não tiver coragem, não é caçador.
Queimei ele, pisei, bem pisado, fiz um pó assim. E todo dia eu fazia um chá e dava pra ele beber.
Bem-vindo! Agora comece a falar o que você quer escrever.
Quanto tempo faz que a gente não joga aqui carteado?
Ganhei mais uma netinha agora.
Eu queria abraçar o mundo inteiro para ter certeza nesse momento que estaria te abraçando. Te amo.
Eu sinto saudades, Zé.
Ganhei mais uma netinha agora.
Eu queria abraçar o mundo inteiro para ter certeza nesse momento que estaria te abraçando.
O projeto transformou a história de 30 desses brasileiros em livros,
só que com a ajuda da tecnologia.
Essa é a minha história. Fora as outras coisas que eu não contei nem conto.
Very interesting case, so emotional that the brand itself doesn't need to overexpress its presence. Okay, it's beautiful, the whole thing is beautiful, what you remember, and there was a project within a project. If you noticed, first they actually took the stories of old people and put them in books, and then secondly they opened a postcards booth where you could tell whatever you wanted to tell, and that would print a postcard. So there's a project within a project that it flows really well. It flows into how it works, because the problem at the very beginning is extremely well defined. Illiterate people in Brazil, you see it all the time. The people interacting are actually illiterate, so the whole project makes it very powerful. Now, you're creatives, right? So you, I hope, don't get too much diverted by the fact that the first case was an animation mostly, each time they were explaining, so 2D animation and 3D elements. The second one has beautiful images. We don't care if there are beautiful images or not. We want to follow the structure of the story and still being immersed in the case, okay? The beautiful images, that's the cherry on top of the cake. But if you don't have beautiful images, you use whatever you have. It's far enough. There are plenty of case studies that just use what they have. Basically, there are three different types of cases you will see. The first type of case studies, I'll call them classic. Okay, the project was interesting, the solution was okay, the proof it works, well, it worked, but not massively. That's enough, that's a classic project, it's fine. What we need is the person to understand very quickly what it meant, what was the solution about, and eventually use it or not later, but that's a classic case studies. The second type of case study, data-driven, and that, like the Holland Island Bank, what they did, very big infrastructural project. The EU is full of big infrastructural projects, so data-driven, what you want to show, it's how it works concretely and the massive impact it had on the life of lots of people. You don't care if the users are actually saying, it worked. No, you're addressing a much more structural type of thinking. Okay, people who want to know how the big thing works. That's data-driven type of case studies. Finally, emotional. That's a very specific type of case studies when you have people impacted, transforming lives in the end. Not all case studies are good for emotions. If your client asks you for emotion all the time, that's a mistake strategically. Some things work emotionally, some others do not work emotionally. You cannot steer something which is data driven into something emotional unless there is real impact for people. Okay, so 3 different type of case studies. We're going to build 3 different type of case studies. What do we need to make a proper case study? Well, that's the most important thing, right? We need lots of visual assets. If you don't have visual assets, how are you going to represent this whole thing? Well, you will have to make an animation or use stock footages. That's still possible, but that's less powerful. So stock footages are great, especially for data-driven projects. Animations, that's just very costly in terms of production, so that's going to make your case study more expensive than the whole campaign. Lots of visual assets is ideally what you want. All the projects we are talking about, most of them have visual assets, okay? Videos, pictures, whatever screenshots you can find of any proof that it worked. Lots of proofs. If they have a website, if a journalist talked about it, you want screenshots out of that. You want to take the picture of the Guardian article, put the logo of the Guardian and show it. You want lots of metrics. You want the number of people who were impacted, the number of people involved, the budget, all these things that show impact. Okay, that's the proof. And finally, you want, that's the starting point, to understand the problem. If you don't understand the problem yourself as a scriptwriter, no one will. How do you understand the problem? You need to ask 20 times until you understand it. Project leaders, what we call beneficiaries, or managing authorities, or even DG Regio itself, if we are very honest. No one understands the problem we're solving. Most of the time they use big words, framework, sustainability, Horizon 2020. You don't want that. The person who's going to watch the case study doesn't care about the mechanics internal to the commission. They want to know what was the problem at stake. So you will have to dig a lot into that particular part. Who can help us on that? You have program managers. Program managers are the guys who are managing a lot of projects for huge regions or huge countries at the same time. Program managers are also called managing authorities, okay? Because they manage the funds. In these funds, you find a lot of projects, and these projects are led by someone, a project leader. He should have a maximum of information on the problem, who the solution addressed, and how it worked concretely. And that's the thing he did for the last 3 years. These project leaders are also called beneficiaries in the European language, okay? So basically, these 2 types of people will bring you different type of information, but you need to contact them both ideally. Start with the program manager, then go to the project leader. A quick recap on how the whole thing works, because it's very complex and I think that's going to help. Basically, European Commission, DG Regio, this is our client. They need to prove that the whole cohesion policy, the whole funds invested in Europe actually made great results. Okay, so these people are the first point of contact. They've sent us the case studies and they are knowing the big numbers. Okay. Below them, there are people who've been handling these funds. So a program who's working for the whole Poland, a program for the whole France, okay? The managing authorities for the Italy, Lombardia region, okay? These guys, they handle 150, 200, 500 projects every 5 years. So they have a big understanding of the whole thing, the whole strategy, but they don't know very well each individual project. So what you want, as I said, is to contact the projects themselves. The projects are plenty, as I said, up to 500 per actual program. So we have lots of projects, and these guys are called beneficiary. At the very end of that whole thing, if you have a problem, you find a solution and you solve things for people, right? These are the users. They are called the users of the project. So these guys benefited of that. If it's a very emotional, intense case study, you change the life of a grandmother, well, go for testimonials of the grandmother if you can find it. Usually when it's very emotional, some journalists, good storytellers, already retold this story. So you have plenty of potential data with other storytellers in this case. Remember, we are not building this case for didgeridoo. We are not building this case for the program, for the project. We are building these cases for storytellers, so they can carry this case forward. Okay, that's our end goal. These storytellers, they are usually interested by the project level. They don't want the big strategic thing for the whole France. They don't get it, or even if they understand it, they are not passionate about it. But the story of this grandmother whose life changed thanks to this particular project, that's interesting for them. So this particular project is what you're telling, the story of that. Which means in terms of branding, you're using the brand of the project. You're using the material of the project. That's where the strategy happens. What do we need internally in the production agency to make all things work? Basically, we need lots of visuals, as I said. We need lots of proofs. We need to understand the problem. You remember that. That's fundamental. If you don't get that right, you will not get a good case studies. Who should work on that particular type of project? Well, the project manager, fundamental. I have a project manager who's been dealing with calling the program part, the project part, non-stop until understanding this whole project. If she cannot tell me the story right, I cannot understand it right, okay? So she's been massively important. The project manager is the first keystone into your team. The second part is the scriptwriter. The scriptwriter is the person who's gonna make this story happen, right? Don't take whatever scriptwriter, whoever, who doesn't have any emotional connection with a case to put him on an emotional case. Put people who have empathy. So eventually you have different scriptwriters. I'm pretty sure a production agency have different people with different sensitivity. Use this as a strength. Finally, what you need is a video editor. The video editor will compile all that, obviously, as a normal editing job, all the assets. So the project manager needs to capture all these assets, make screenshots if needed, pass all to the video editor with the certitude that we have the right to use the licensing rights to use the videos in the picture. Normally, this should be cleared by the project manager. The video editor, your role is to find the actual accent where to put the power. If this on the how it works is this is in the insight, you have to show that. You need to be deciding and decisive on what to put emphasis on. Ideal case, what happened? You have lots of videos, amazing. You have lots of press articles, you've been screenshotting like crazy, all the big things that happened, and ideally you have a good problem and solution. You understand very well the connection, the project is exciting. That's your ideal case that will happen once every 10 cases. A very bad case happening as well, 1 every 10 cases. There's no assets. You don't have anything because the project is not even launched yet. We have one case here in Austria where the project is very in its infancy. We have no assets, very painful. The project didn't start or not really yet. So what are you saying? You're basically retelling the story that is on paper. Not very interesting. The last problem is very, very problematic for everyone is that when you get a program logic, okay, the big thinking, strategy, whatever, instead of a project logic, the actual thing that was done. No one is interested by the big picture strategy on paper, okay? People want to relate in a 3-minute case video with something that was actually done, because otherwise these are just big words and no concrete achievement. That's it for our presentation, my presentation on what is a video case study. I'm gonna be there at all time to answer your questions. Ideally, you now handle the whole thing. There will be a number of case studies already prepared to guide you. There's one emotional one, there is one data-driven one, and potentially 2 classics, especially one that didn't have any assets. So we're gonna try to find a solution with stock footages to actually make it believable and interesting, even without assets. I wish you all the best for the project. It's going to be amazing because 30 case studies, you're actually showing what happened in Europe. That's maybe one of the first time we're going to have a proper structure to tell these 30 stories. And remember, we need people to carry this story forward. If you're not excited by watching the case study yourself, rework it. Thank you very much and see you soon.